Hello, so I am back, and yesterday I did the kind of female side players deposition transcripts. So that was it was a makeup artist, a hair care woman, and a few others. Leslie Sloan. We went through quite a few things. Oh, there's Lizzie Tolbert as well, of course. And one of the experts. Today I was going to do the male ones. I may throw in, we have got a small excerpt from Stephanie Jones. I've been looking for it for ages, so I may throw that in at the end as well. I was going to start today with Danny Greenberg, Warren Zavala, and Justin Stone. So Danny Greenberg was obviously Justin Baldoni's agent at WME. Warren Zavala is Blake Lively's representative at WME, and Justin Stone is her manager. So we'll just go through some of this. We'll start with Danny Greenberg. There is a long deposition transcript filing for Warren Zavala. It is too long to do in this video, so I'll do that as a standalone video, I think. But there is a smaller excerpt of like 10, 15 pages, I think, or 20 pages, which I will do here. Okay, so this is Danny Greenberg. So we're kind of coming in and halfway through a question. You being a talent. So I don't know, again, as usual, don't know who is actually, which side is questioning at this point. We'll figure it all out as we go along. Greenberg responds, yes. Then he's asked, now you're familiar with the parties to this case, having read the complaint. In other words, who the plaintiff is and who the defendants are. Yes. And is it correct that at some point in time, you represented Mr. Baldoni, a defendant in this case? Yes. How long did you represent Mr. Baldoni in your capacity as a talent agent? Around 5 years. I started representing him after he directed his first movie, roughly the second half of 2019. And are you familiar with an entity called Wayfarer? Yes. And Wayfarer Studios, is that or has that been a client of William Morris's, if you know? Yes. And would you be the talent agent who would have primarily been responsible for the representation of Wayfarer? There was a team that represented Wayfarer. The primary representation of Wayfarer was through William Morris Endeavour's independent division. I was involved in that representation, but my primary responsibility was representing Justin as an actor and as a director and an actor. And again, approximately how many years or how long did you represent Mr. Baldoni in your capacity as an agent for William Morris? 5 years. Do you still represent Mr. Baldoni? No. Why not? We released Mr. Baldoni, or Justin and Wayfarer, right around December 22nd of 24. Okay, let me start with, who is we? The agency. Was there some event that prompted Mr. Baldoni's dismissal as a client of William Morris? Gavronsky, who is representing Lively. So this is Garofalo. She is the one questioning, so Wayfarer are doing the questioning at this point. So Gavronsky objects. Greenberg says, can you repeat the question? Garofalo says, I will. I'll rephrase it. Did something happen that caused William Morris to drop Mr. Baldoni as a client? Yes. And then we jump many pages ahead. In fact, so many pages, I'm not sure who is still doing the questioning at this point. Okay, so we're partway through a question. You see that you received this. You're in the CC line. Yes, I do. Okay, and you see the subject is, it ends with us proposed Sony co-production term sheet. Got it? Yep. Do you see that? It looks like a producer arranged an agreement between Wayfarer and Sony. Okay. And the attachment to at least Exhibit 22 is proposal to Sony for It Ends With Us. Do you see that? Yes. Okay. And you recall receiving this document? No, I don't recall seeing it because I wasn't across this. My colleague, Deb McIntosh, was, but I was copied. Okay. And the beginning email of Exhibit 22 states, Michael, on behalf of Wayfarer Studios, attached, please find a proposed term sheet for a co-production for It Ends With Us. Do you see that document? Yes, yes. Do you understand that Shiloh Moore, who it looks to be a lawyer, was sending this to Sony on behalf of Wayfarer? Is that right? Looks that way, yeah? Okay. And if you could go to the next page. Oh, by the way, also does Sony go by Columbia? Yes. Okay, so if we see Columbia in this, can we understand that to be referring to Sony? Yes. Okay, so if you can go to the page ending in 345 of Exhibit 22 and paragraph 6. Do you see that? Yes. Okay, and you see it says director, Justin Baldoni to direct and to have final cut rights. Picture to be edited at a location of his choosing. Do you see that? Yes. What does final cut rights mean? Meaning that his cut of the movie would be the movie that would be released. So do you understand that Wayfarer in their proposal to Sony was proposing that Mr. Baldoni would have final cut rights? Yes. Okay, let's go to Exhibit 23, please. And I'm going to ask you to turn to the exact same paragraph, which is located on the page ending in Bates number 1997. Same paragraph, paragraph 6. Let me know when you're there. I'm there. Okay, and do you notice any changes in paragraph 6? Yes. Please explain. It says here, I'm assuming this is a response from Sony, that Sony does not customarily give directors a final cut, which is their response to Wayfarer asking for it. So, specifically in paragraph 6, they put what appears to be brackets around to have final cut rights. Is that right? Yes. And then they write in the last sentence, Columbia customarily doesn't give directors final cut. Do you understand that? Yes. Okay, and then let's go to the third exhibit, 24, and we can start on the cover page, which ends in 367. And you see this is an email from, again, Mr. Moore saying, attached, please find a clean red line proposal with our remaining minor requested changes. Do you see that? Yes. Okay, and so let's go to the next page again. Same drill. Document ends in 369, paragraph 6. Do you see that paragraph? Yes. And what do you notice about paragraph 6 in this version? It now has become basically a scenario of testing the film, and it's ultimately how that ultimately plays out will dictate which film will be released. So paragraph 6 removes the language that Mr. Baldoni was to have the final cut rights. Is that right? Correct. And it says instead, final cut to be determined by Bake Off. You know, in Britain, Bake Off means something very different. It's usually a bunch of celebrities in a tent with ovens. So Greenberg says yes. Garofalo, what's a bake-off? A bake-off is when a filmmaker comes to an agreement with a studio that if the movie tests at a certain level, that the studio would release that particular version of the movie, if it achieves those numbers in a test screening scenario. And what happens if it doesn't achieve those levels? Then the studio would not contractually be obligated to release that cut of the film. What would be released instead? They would probably come to some arrangement on ultimately what which cut would be released. And usually at that point, the studio and filmmaker and the editor would work on a cut that everyone feels good about. So a bake-off contemplates more than one cut. Well, a bake-off contemplates really in this. Well, let me look, because I don't see it referring to any other cut in here. Well, how would it be a bake-off if it's only one cut? You know, the word bake-off really doesn't have, I'm not sure why it was used in this scenario, because it's pretty clear, and the studio made it pretty clear, as did Wayfarer, that once it hits the level in which it needed to hit, the studio would release Justin's cut. So I'm not sure why the word bake-off would be in this particular paragraph, because it doesn't reference anything other than perhaps Sony's cut In other words, if his cut tested at a certain level and along the way of post-production, Sony come up with another cut of the movie as a backup in the event that Justin's cut didn't reach the level in which it needed to reach, they can then, theoretically, put this contract and use the Sony cut. That would be my only interpretation of why there would be a bake-off. And does this document contemplate any specificity regarding what you have called Sony's cut? Well, it says Columbia's changes, so that would be the implication in this if you were trying to find some version of why the word bake-off is there. But my interpretation in reading this is pretty clear that it's simply a function of how Justin's cut would test and whether or not Sony would have to engage or not because the movie didn't test at a certain level. You're not a lawyer, right? No. So are you saying that they would include the word bake-off even though they didn't really mean bake-off? No. Okay. And you see the last sentence refers to a cut incorporating Columbia's changes, right? Yep, yes. And it doesn't say here who would be responsible for creating a cut incorporating Columbia's changes, does it? No, it does not. Okay, so as of at least the date of this document, which let's see when that is, October 2022, Mr. Baldoni understood that he would not have final cut rights, is that right? So Lively's team are asking this now, because Garofalo objects. Greenberg, correct. Gavronsky. Okay, let's go to an exhibit that opposing counsel showed you, exhibit number 8, which ends in WME 1214. Before we talk about this document, Mr. Greenberg, I just want to understand, were there only ever literally two versions of the film, like Justin's edit and then another version, and that was it? Only two? No, I mean, there's Justin, it's a living, breathing thing. So Justin's edit of the film was a movie that he effectively finished, but not literally finished, but that he, for the most part, finished. I'm not sure whether or not it was locked yet. But that was the movie that was tested that I attended. And that was when I think this particular formula that you read in the last paragraph, in paragraph 6, applied to that test. How do you know it applied to that test? Because as far as I know, that was the last test of any of his films or any of his cuts that he was doing along the way. How many of Justin's cuts were tested? I don't recall how many. More than one, though? I know there was at least 2 tests, but it was the cut that he was progressing on. So it's one version of the movie. It might have been further along in the second test than it was in the first test, but it was the movie that he was working on post. So we move to a different page. I think Library's team are still questioning, but we're coming in as Greenberg is answering something. He says he also referenced there might have been a couple of other things, like referencing the fact that the production hired one of Justin's friends to be a doctor on the movie, in addition to Justin hiring his wife to be a doctor on the movie. There was I don't recall anything else off the top of my head, but he felt to me on that call that he was trying to build a case against Justin, and I just didn't feel like anything rose to that occasion. So I was trying to get, Ryan to give me more, and that's when he sort of put a stop to it, and the call pivoted to more about the print and the test that had just happened in his reaction to what he had just seen in this part of it. But you earlier testified none of what he conveyed was sexual in nature, is that right? Correct. Okay, do you recall Mr. Reynolds conveying to you that Colleen Hoover did not want to go to the premiere with Mr. Baldoni? I do remember that. What did he tell you? He asked me if Justin was planning on going to the premiere, which surprised me. I said, of course he would. I think at the time I reiterated to him that he found the material, developed the material, produced the material, co-financed the material, starred in the movie, directed the movie, and it seemed peculiar that he would even raise that issue. And his reaction to my reaction was that Colleen would not go to the premiere if Justin was there, or that he believed it's possible that Colleen would not go to the premiere if he was not there. Did you speak to Miss Hoover regarding whether she would go to the premiere if Mr. Baldoni was there? No. Do you have any reason to doubt Mr. Reynolds' statement that Miss Hoover would not go to the premiere if Mr. Baldoni was there? I had no reason to doubt it. Do you recall Mr. Reynolds telling you that Miss Lively was actually trying to keep the cast together at that point to all go to the premiere together? I don't recall that part of the conversation. Okay, so she then shows him an exhibit, but we won't go into that because we go to a different part of the deposition. Okay, the question is, by refuting her claims about what happened on the set, and then he answers, potentially. Again, I wasn't across the publicity campaign or anything along those lines, so this was basically a reflection of what I heard from the publicist as well as from Wayfarer. But your understanding is that they were preparing to go public to refute her claims about what happened to her on the set. Garofalo objects. In the event they needed to defend themselves, as my understanding is that they were prepared to be truthful about what their experience was. Did you attend the premiere of It Ends With Us? Yes. Did you speak with Mr. Sauritz at the premiere? I spoke with Mr. Sauritz at the premiere. The party. The premiere party after the premiere? Correct. Where did that occur? At a hotel down the street. I forgot the name of it. And that was on August 6th, 2024. That sounds right. What did you and Mr. Sauritz discuss? He asked me how things were going with respect to publicity, with respect to the dynamic between Blake and Justin. Is this going to impact how the movie opens? My response to him was simply, the publicists are all over it. They're doing their job. They're working in conjunction with Blake's publicity team. And it seems to me like everything's going to be okay. At that point, it was Thursday before the movie opened. So there really wasn't much out there, if anything, about the dynamic between the two of them. So I was basically trying to just sort of calm him down. He was seemingly a bit defensive and nervous about what would happen. Again, he was he financed and built the studio. And so I was just basically alleviating his concerns. And he seemed to be okay. You used the words calm him down. How would you describe his demeanor? I don't know him very well. I've only met him a couple of times. I've only met him and had a couple of Zooms with him over time. But, he seems to me to be a relatively intense guy and a very straightforward, seemingly very honest guy. At least how he has communicated with me in the few times that we've communicated, and how that's very important to him. Kind of a spiritual, faithful guy. And so in that moment, it seemed to me that he was feeling like, and I've used the word earlier, a bit defensive, in that he needed to potentially protect himself. And so I was trying to reassure him that he really had nothing to worry about and that everyone was doing their job. And, the movie's going to go open great and, it's going to be all right. Do you remember anything in particular that Mr. Sarowitz said, his exact words? For instance, well, did Mr. Sarowitz tell you that he was prepared to spend $100 million to ruin the lives of Miss Lively? No, he did not say that. Did he say anything similar to that? He said that, if I remember correctly, when I used the word publicist, his response to that was, that's fine, but, I have lawyers. And in the event I need to, and this becomes a legal situation, I'm prepared to spend no expense. Which is, by the way, everyone, an entirely different statement to, I'm going to spend $100 million to ruin the lives of Blake Lively and their family. So Greenberg continues. He didn't mention anything about money, and again, it just sort of seemed in character. But my analysis was that it was purely defensive and that he had no intention of doing anything. It sounded like it was a little bit of hubris and a little bit like, let me know if I need to do anything, I will. Let me know if I need to engage or whatever. And so that was the last time I spoke to him. So it's your testimony that he did not reference spending $100 million? I don't recall. It's possible. I just don't recall him using that number or that figure. I do recall something to the effect of sparing no expense, so it's possible he did. I just don't recall that. And is Mr. Sauritz a billionaire? I believe so. Objection. I believe so from what I've read. So what was your impression of when he said he would spare no expense? I didn't really have much of an impression. Okay, so there's a different page now. Greenberg's answering. We don't know the question. Yes, that's the only thing that he mentioned to me. He used the word legal, and that was the only context in which he mentioned anything to me. Gavronsky. Okay, I'm going to mark Exhibit 30. I think it's Greenberg's counsel says, counsel, after this exhibit, can we take a 5-minute break? Gavronsky. Yeah, I have just one more module after this, and then I will be done, but we can take a break. Okay, what I just handed to you is WME 1319. Do you see that in front of you? I do. Do you recognize this? Yes, I do. Okay, do you see in the first paragraph you say, I think we're on a good path here. There's a truce between the publicists on both sides, and your last sentence in that paragraph is, I had to dial down the billionaire at the premiere who is ready for a serious battle. Do you see that? Yes. Who is the billionaire that you're referring to here? Steve Sauritz. And again, why did you use the term strike that? Why did you use the term, well, strike that. Why did you use the term ready for serious battle? Well, it's just a continuation of what I've been saying in the past 5 minutes, that he felt threatened, and battle refers to potentially having to get into a legal dispute. Okay, let's take a quick break and then just think I just have 2 more minutes of questions. Garofalo, can we get a time check for both sides, please? Yes, let's go off the record first. Okay, so then that's that then. Okay, so we have more Danny Greenberg deposition. So the first one, that one I just read, was from Lively's filing. This is from Wayfarers. Okay. Okay. So he's answering no. We don't know the question. At this point, this is Wayfarer, because this is only page 12. So this will be Wayfarer. Okay. Right. So Garofalo. All right. I'm going to give you some ground rules, but let me ask you a preliminary question. Do you know Blake Lively? Is that correct? Do I know of Blake Lively, or do I? Yeah, what? Yes. By the way, yes. You know of Miss Lively. Have you ever met Miss Lively? Yes. How many times? Twice. And Miss Lively is a client of your agency, is that correct? Yes. Have you personally been involved in Miss Lively's representation? No. Why don't we actually begin at the beginning? What is your occupation? I'm a talent agent. Who are you affiliated with? So then we are moving into different pages. So, okay, I'm not going to read those 2 pages because they were the first 2 pages that were in Lively's filing. So, we'll go to this one. Okay, Garofalo. On the set, making comments, offering his opinions, anything at all? Yes. Okay, and tell me what Mr. Reynolds' involvement was, if you can. Objections are lodged at this point. Greenberg. At that point, my understanding was really just support and perhaps some creative feedback that he may have worked through Blake to Justin and the team. Outside of that, I'm not aware of any other creative contribution he was making. Okay, so you told me that there were basically 2 subjects covered in the call with Mr. Reynolds. The first were certain aspects of Justin's behavior. Tell me what Mr. Reynolds says. Objection. He brought up incidents that happened between Justin and Blake. We discussed a few of those, and then we translated and moved on to talking a bit about the movie. Okay, what instances did Mr. Reynolds describe to you during the phone call prior to the premiere? He brought up an incident of Justin and the production playing a birthing video. He brought up an instance of Justin inquiring about Blake's weight through a third party. He also brought up Justin's behavior with respect to doing the electronic press kit, and Justin's behavior having to do with I believe there was a coffee table book in discussion that come up. Mentioned something about the production hiring a doctor on the film that was a friend of his, and then had a discussion about Ryan's opinion of the cut that he had seen. We had a discussion about that as well. Anything else that Mr. Reynolds raised with you with respect to instances of Justin's behavior on the call 2 or 3 weeks prior to the premiere? Not that I recall beyond what I've said. So I'm just going to interject. It's interesting. I find it interesting that in between this deposition and the last one that we read from Danny Greenberg, there was 2 particular interesting references for me. Kind of, if you look at them and put them in the timeline of events, and you had Ryan Reynolds was complaining to Danny Greenberg about the book. Oh God, I have to read it. Coffee table book in. So that's obviously something that Colleen Hoover brought up in that email to the 2 Sony executives, where she was talking about whether Justin should go to the premiere or whether she would, or why she supported Blake. I did a video on that on its own because she gave all these reasons in that for, oh, well, I support Blake. It's not, I wouldn't want to be in her situation where she's watching someone else take credit for her work. Not a single peep, not a mention of sexual harassment, even at that point. And there was something about, I was unhappy that I was lied to about the book the book I approved. And I just find it interesting that Ryan Reynolds then subsequently, well, I don't know if it was subsequently or around the same time at least, is calling Danny Greenberg, complaining about the coffee table book thing, and then talking about, oh, are you aware Colleen Hoover's not going to go to the premiere if he goes? The timing of these things all happening at the same time is sus. I think Ryan Reynolds is behind it. If someone's really pinned me down and said, Leanne, what do you think drove Colleen Hoover to send that email off to Sony? The one that you did in a video earlier. What do you think the driving force was? And I would say, well, it's odd. She seems to have the same talking points as Ryan Reynolds does to WME. Almost verbatim. And I do think Ryan Reynolds drove so much of this. I do. Okay. Right, so just to go back, anything else that Mr. Reynolds raised with you with respect to instances of Justin's behaviour on the call 2 or 3 weeks prior to the premiere? Not that I call beyond what I said. Did Mr. Reynolds have an attitude? Was he angry, happy about the film? Was there any indication of Mr. Reynolds' state of mind? There's objections. I think he was a bit angry. He seemed a bit defensive. Okay, and then we're now going to a different page. Still Garofalo doing the questioning. Exhibit 13 is another chat, this time with Mr. Heath. It is dated Wednesday, July 3rd, 2024, and Mr. Baldoni is included. And in the first chat, he says, please tell Josh that I'm willing to waive my quote, a film by credit, close quote. I want peace and for this to end. Do you have any understanding of what Mr. Baldoni was saying in Exhibit 13? Yes. What was he saying to your understanding? Jamie reached out to me to let me know that Blake made a request that Justin take off his film by credit, and which opened up another conversation that we had to have strategically. And ultimately, Justin made a decision to waive his film by credit for her. Was Miss Lively at this point in time still threatening not to participate in publicity this time if Mr. Baldoni didn't agree to waive his film by credit? There's objections, and Greenberg says he's not aware of that. So now we're going to a different page. Gabernsky is now questioning on behalf of Lively. So he's answering a question, says correct. So she's now asking, so you don't have any personal knowledge whatsoever? No. When did filming wrap on It Ends With Us? Ken, this is actually a good time for a break after you've answered this question if you need one. If not, we'll keep going. You may have a better sense of the date than I do. Sometime in early 2024. I don't know the date. Do you want a break or do you want to keep going? We can take a break. Okay, great. Let's take a 20-minute break. Okay, so they go off, they come back. Mr. Greenberg, when I refer to post-production, I'll be referring to the time after early 2024 when filming wrapped, okay? And then we're going to a different page again. By refuting her claims about what happened on the set. Potentially, again, I wasn't across the publicity campaign or anything along those lines. So there was basically a reflection. This was basically a reflection of what I heard from the publicist as well as from Wayfarer. But your understanding is that they were preparing to go public to refute her claims about what happened to her on the set. Objection. I feel like I've read this. Yes, I've read this. This is about what he spoke to Sarowitz about at the premiere. So we've read that and that. And I really it's the same video. I just do not want to say the same thing. Okay, so we did cut off here, because her question, what was your impression of when he said he would spare no expense? I didn't really have much of an impression. So I read up to that. I do know. This one actually continues that because it cut off in the other deposition. So let's go with this. I know he has means and that he would do what he needed to do in the event that he felt threatened. Oh. And what was he prepared to do? Do you recall any words that he used of what he was prepared to do? There was no specificity. It was broad. Did he say that he was prepared to ruin the lives of Miss Lively and her family in any way? No. Objection. What did he say regarding Miss Lively and her family? Objection. He never mentioned her family. It's possible that he mentioned Blake and Ryan and sort of combined the two of them in terms of power things with Blake and Ryan. But beyond that, there was no mention of his family, their family. There was no mention of ruining the lives from what I remember. What do you recall about what he said about Miss Lively? He had nothing specific to say about Blake. Okay, so we've jumped a page now. She's reading a text message by the looks of it, a little concerned about Steve S. And then she asks, that's Mr. Sarowitz. He says, correct. She says, you said he was really aggressive when I spoke to him. Do you see that? Yes. And what were you referencing when you said when I spoke with him? The conversation that we had just discussed at the premiere party. And why did you describe him as really aggressive? I think that was just describing his personality. He's not really experienced in the world of Hollywood and movie making, and he seemed to be presenting himself as more of a businessman, and he was feeling threatened and vulnerable. And so I measured it also that he was, trying to, at least with respect to me, kind of prove himself in that moment that I'm capable of, defending myself if I need to. And so I think it was sort of in line with what his personality is, which I had blocked from the very beginning, that he's just an intense man. And so I just wanted to make sure that, he had nothing to worry about. And so, I did mention it to Ange in this exchange. And when he said, I will spare no expense, he said that in an aggressive manner. I don't recall. And then you write, I've been texting Jamie to make sure he's managed and to make sure he speaks with me before doing anything nuclear. Do you see that? Yes, correct. Were you concerned that Mr. Sarowitz would do something nuclear? Oh, for God's sake. I was worried about him potentially going legal or litigious with Blake and Brian, because that's what he mentioned he would need to potentially do in the event he had to. And so my reference here is the conversation I had with Jamie, in which I brought it up to Jamie and suggest, just to basically say, the conversation I had with Steve was what I just described here. And so that's what I was referencing. And so your version of nuclear was just filing the lawsuit? Yes, that's the only thing he mentioned to me. He used the word legal, and that was the only context in which he mentioned anything to me. Okay, I'm going to mark Exhibit 30. His counsel then says, after this exhibit, can we take a 5-minute break? I think we've seen this one as well. Yeah, I've read that in the last one. This one I didn't know. Okay, so Gavronsky, Mr. Greenberg, did you tell anyone that Mr. Sauritz told you he was prepared to spend $100 million to ruin Miss Lively's life? Objection. I don't recall him being specific about that number, but I did have a conversation with Warren Zavala, my colleague, about that. It's possible I had a conversation. Well, let's go back. First of all, I don't have any memory of him mentioning ruining anyone's life, but the conversation that I did have with him, I did a conversation with Warren Zavala about that afterwards. It's possible it came up with Patrick Whitesell, but I do remember having an exchange with Warren about it. And what did you tell Warren? Basically what I testified to earlier, that, I making him aware of the situation and the importance of everybody, just staying the course, focusing on getting the movie open, and that Steve presented to me as somebody who felt very sort of attacked and vulnerable, and it cuts off there. And then we skipped a page, and then we're back 2 pages later. She's asking a question. Mr. Sauritz told you he was willing to spend $100 million. God, is she still on this? How many times does the guy have to say, I don't recall him saying that? Oh, Garofalo, objection. Greenberg, it's possible. Of course it's possible. I don't remember it saying it. She's basically trying to beat him into conceding that Steve Sauritz said it now. Gavronsky, who is Marie Sheehy? Objection. Marie Sheehy she's a colleague. She runs our corporate communications, WME. Is she your boss? No. Do you recall telling her that Mr. Sauritz told you he was prepared to spend $100 million? Again, I don't recall telling anyone that he said that figure, but it is possible that it came up. Marie was engaged with the situation after the movie opened, and so it's possible we had that conversation. I just don't recall having it. Would it surprise you to learn that Miss Sheehy recalls you telling her that Mr. Sauritz conveyed to you that he was prepared to spend $100 million to ruin Miss Lively's life? Objection. I don't have any memory of having a conversation about Steve Sauritz ruining anybody's life. Oh, he's getting a bit annoyed now. It's just repetition. Gavronsky. Okay. Would it surprise you to learn that Marie Sheehy recalls you telling her that Mr. Sauritz was prepared to spend $100 million? Jesus, they really going in hard on what is effectively hearsay. Garofalo, objection. If I had the conversation with her, that wouldn't surprise me. And what about Patrick Whitesell? Did you convey any statements to Mr. Whitesell regarding your conversation with Mr. Sauritz? I don't recall specifically having it. I do believe there was a text exchange that we covered with respect to that issue. So it's possible that you conveyed to Mr. Whitesell that Mr. Sauritz told you that he was prepared to spend $100 million. Oh, for fuck's sake. Yes, and then there's an objection. Yes, that's possible. God. I'm not even going to start because it finishes there. Good God. Right. Let's go to Warren Zavala. So Warren Zavala is Blake Lively's WME talent agent, obviously the colleague of Danny Greenberg. This is Blake Lively's filing. Yeah, I mean, there is a much longer, I think it's like 109-page filing of a deposition transcript from Warren Zavala, but I'm not going to do that here because it's far too long. I will do it separately. Okay, so I think the questioning is started by Ellen Garofalo for Wayfarer. I don't know who Lively's attorney is yet. We'll figure that out. Okay. So kind of halfway through a question, something about messages were not very complimentary. His attorney objects. Then he answers, that is absolutely not true. Garofalo, okay. Now, before filming resumed, let's mark, I think we're at 5 or 6? 5. As Exhibit 5, a document bait stamped Heath 45307 through 45311. The witness says Blakel. Garofalo, and you'd anticipated my first question. Does this document refresh your recollection as to what Blakel is? Yeah, I just figured it out. It's the name of her loan out. Okay, and take a minute to look at this document, beginning on the, you know what, someone didn't copy this correctly. Okay, it's been a long day. On the first page of the document, there's a list starting with 1 that continues on the next 2 pages. Do you see that? Yes. Just without sitting here and reading it carefully, can you tell us if you have any understanding as to what that list is? Is this the return to work? Just take a minute to look at the document. Okay. Okay, do you recognize the list? Yes, I've seen it before. What is it? It's the return to work. What does that mean? It's what was presented for her to be able to return to work and finish the movie. Okay, this is a list that was presented to Wayfarer as a condition of Miss Lively returning to complete the movie. Is that a correct statement? Yes. Objection to form. Oh, so Bruno is there for Matthew Bruno was there for Lively. Okay, Garofalo. And if you know, was Miss Lively refusing to return to work on the movie if Wayfarer did not agree to this list? That's my understanding. I wasn't a party to the drafting of this or the presentation of it, and then we move on. So part way through a question. At this point, I'm not sure who's asking the questions, actually. Part way through the question, and it involves simple favor, another simple favor. His answer is yes, the simple favor thing was a sequel, and it was also a streaming deal. So I'd like to get a theatrical deal in the same zone. If not more would be my hope, and to get it to a better place financially. Okay, and you testified that there was no offers after it ends with us. No meaningful or real offers, correct? And you qualified it by saying meaningful. What do you mean by that? Anybody can send a script that is remotely in the business who wants to put together a project. It doesn't mean they have the money to finance it or make a bona fide offer or have a start date or have distribution. So a meaningful offer in my mind would be something that is either financed or has a distributor or has an element involved that is meaningful enough where you would, the movie's going to get done without her attaching herself to it. Okay. And have you noticed there being just generally less interest in Miss Lively in films? Yes. Well, I mean, no fucking wonder she's going to come in and steal the damn thing from people, get people fired, then accuse them of sexual harassment for good measure. I mean, who the fuck is going to want to work with a monster like that? I've been really restrained actually all morning, but I knew it was coming somewhere. It's absolutely absurd to suggest that is because of Wayfarer's conduct. All right. And we have this one from Justin. This is Justin Stone, who is Blake Lively's manager. So this is not an agent at WME or anything like that. This is her talent manager. All right. Not entirely sure who is questioning here. Let's figure it out as we go. Let's find out together. All right, so halfway through a question, inappropriate conduct occurring on the set. There's some objections. I think I haven't heard of, so I'm guessing that is Justin Stone's attorney. But I don't know for sure. Justin Stone. I can't say that I remember the timing as such. I think there were other issues, but I don't know if they were of the same ilk or extent. So I can't answer that correctly. Right, Garofalo is questioning. What other issues do you think there were after Miss Lively returned to the set to resume filming? I mean, it was, from my understanding, a lot of unprofessionalism in general with the set. What do you mean by that? There were different instances. I can tell you when I was on set where I witnessed people in hugging circles and getting together. I don't know. It was less about me, but my understanding was I wouldn't say it completely stopped. What is a hugging circle? It's exactly what it sounds like. Is this continuing? Yes. Wow. And then he goes to answer, there were things that would feel inappropriate by means of any other film set. Like what? People getting together and hugging around the filmmaker before and after. Before the scene started, large groups of people. Okay. In your visit to the set, did you witness anybody strike that? When you visited the set, did you witness any of the Wayfarer parties, Mr. Heath, Mr. Baldoni, or anybody you understood to be affiliated with Wayfarer hugging Miss Lively? Outside of the scenes, no. Okay, what other crossing of borders, if any, did you witness in your visits to the set after filming resumed? There's an objection. He says, while I was on set, the boundaries were kept, but also, I would imagine, partly because I was on set. Okay. So they all behaved himself for his benefit, is what he's saying. Garofalo, okay, so you didn't witness anything that crossed the boundary when you were on set, other than the hugging circles, which involved people other than Miss Lively. Is that correct? We're going to a different page now. Halfway through the question, representative from Sony sat in the editing room with Ms. Lively and participated in the editing. Objection. Is that your testimony? I'm not testifying that somebody sat in the room. I'm saying that much of the editing, from my understanding, happened on the Sony lot. Okay. And then he continues, so I would say, if it happened on the Sony lot, then they were aware and spearheading it. It's their lot. It's their edit room. Now, you are aware that Sony was pushing Wayfarer to give in to Miss Lively's demands because she was threatening Sony, are you not? Objection. If those happened, perhaps it was because creatively Sony wanted to take the movie in a different direction. Did Miss Lively threaten to not return to production after the strikes unless certain conditions were met? Objections. I don't think Blake ever threatened. This guy just wants to keep his job. It's why everything was worded as protections being requested to be met. They were never demands. Are you kidding me? When Wayfarer tried to negotiate the wording, they were told there's no negotiation. Nowhere does it ever say demands. It doesn't have to say demands. Oh my God. It's implication, implied terms, yeah? The fact that they state that this is non-negotiable, agree to it or else, is an implied demand. It doesn't expressly have to say, by the way, this is a demand. Jesus Christ. Nowhere does it ever threaten that she won't return. I mean, she wasn't going to return. Right, okay, we continue. What she did was she put forward a list of protections for herself and for everybody else on the set. That's apparently did not benefit anyone else on the set, by the way. That needed to be met in order to ensure a safe working environment that Wayfarer's negligence was not providing. Garofalo moved to strike as non-responsive. Okay, let's try this another way. And then he's like, I think it's an important point, though. It's not the question. At some point, Miss Lively put together her own cut of the film. Is that correct? Objection. Again, no, it's not correct. Yes, she fucking did. Her PGA letter says it was my cut. Sony used my cut. Okay. Going to a different part of the deposition now, which is annoying because I wanted to read more of that. I can't wait for all of this to be fully unsealed. I'm going to have such a great time. All right, okay, so we're on a completely different page now. I don't know if it's still Garofalo. It could be Lively questioning at this point. So the question is, okay, we are going to look at the deal before it ends with us momentarily, but let me ask you a couple of questions. At some point in time, you became aware of the ends with us project. Is that right? That's correct. And did you bring the project to Miss Lively's attention? I feel like this is Lively's team questioning now, potentially. Because they've gone back to the beginning here. He answers, the project was first brought to our attention from her agent, Warren Zavala, and we all discussed with her as a team. And when you first learned about the project, did you think this would be a project Miss Lively would be interested in pursuing? I had my concerns about it, and I was unsure whether it was something she would be excited about, given the relative inexperience of the filmmaker and co-star, and sort of the newer nature of the financial end. Are you fucking joking me? Why? Okay, so this is so frustrating. So I'm just going to do this again. I've done it once already on a video I filmed today, so I'm going to do this again for the second time, right? People keep talking about the relative inexperience of Justin Baldoni. Again, as an actor, he has 1 more credit than Blake Lively. As a producer, he has 33 more credits than Blake Lively. As a director, he has 13 more credits than Blake Lively. As a writer, he has 2 more credits than Blake Lively. And I just want to go back quickly to the 3 producer credits that Blake Lively has. One of them is for a film she has done. That would be It Ends With Us. The other 2 are for films that are still in production, still in progress. Okay? Awards. He has won. He's won 25 more awards than her. Yes, she's had more nominations, but he's had more wins. So when we're talking about the relative inexperience, right? Justin Baldoni was far more experienced than Blake Lively. Just saying. It really pisses me off that these idiots got their heads so far up their ass they don't even recognize that. They've clearly not looked into his background at all. Absolute bunch of snobs. Okay, he continues. There were other things to consider, such as the success of the film and the message that it had. What, she didn't like the message that the film had? He says, which I knew would be really important to her. And I knew how important it would be to send that message to women, to her audience. It's odd because, given how important that message was to her, she didn't say a damn thing about it. So I was unsure which way it would go. I'm going to translate that. I was really concerned about Blake Lively taking on this movie because there was an important message to be communicated, and I didn't think she was up to communicating it. Question: did Miss Lively express to you any reservations about the inexperience of the filmmaker, who here was Mr. Baldoni? I can't remember if anything stemmed directly from her, but I can say as a team, we'll look at all the pros and cons of a potential project and the relative inexperience of him. And also his stature as an actor at the time were things that were taken into deep consideration and part of the conversation and concerns for her as a team. And what did the team, well, let me ask you specifically, what, if anything, did you suggest or advise Miss Lively do in order to counter the relative inexperience of the filmmaker here? Objection. I think there was a process laid out where she had read the book. No, she hadn't read the fucking book. Are you? Oh, this pisses me off. He's seriously going to try to say that she had read the book. She's not read the fucking book. Oh, thankfully it jumps before my blood pressure goes to shit over that. That's so annoying. That's a blatant lie. That's just someone who's trying to keep his job. Otherwise, Ryan Reynolds will fire him. Okay, so we're coming into a question. Email from Leslie Sloan that has attached some marketing guidelines, if I'm not mistaken. Do you recall that? I do. Is this the document that you are referring to during this testimony? Yes. And if you could turn to the third page of the document, which is Bates stamped VPR 854. Under what to avoid? It says, focus more on Lily's strength and resilience as opposed to describing the film as a story about domestic violence. Empowerment is not just about standing up to adversity, but also having the power to overcome within oneself and grow from it and develop an agency to shape the future. Do you see that? What is your understanding of the genesis of this document that was attached? Is that continuing? That was attached to Miss Sloan's email. My understanding of it was that it was a marketing directive and guideline based on Wayfarer and Sony's wishes, Sony being the director and sort of the final arbiter of how the movie was released and marketed. Sony was not the director. You fucking cretin. And these are the guidelines for everyone, including Wayfarer, including Justin, including anyone appearing on camera, that they were all to be in unison. And do you know whether Miss Lively followed Sony's instructions to focus on female empowerment as opposed to making the film just about domestic violence? I think Blake did everything within her power to follow all the guidelines that were given to her and to make sure the film was the best success, to reach the most amount of people with the highest amount of impact as possible in the way that felt authentic to the film and to everyone receiving it. Doesn't this sound prepared? These answers, they sound prepared by Ryan Reynolds. Do you know when Miss Lively first started promoting the film, and specifically whether it was before or after the film's release? It would be prior. And we're going to a different part of deposition. Partway through the answer, they were both at the premiere. And do you know whether Miss Lively appeared on the red carpet with Mr. Baldoni? I know that they were both on the red carpet at times. I can't confirm they were together. Did Miss Lively have reservations about appearing on the red carpet with Mr. Baldoni for the premiere? As I understood it, she and others did as well, yes. What were Miss Lively's concerns as you understand them? Her concerns, as I understood them, were that Justin and the Wayfarer team were people that contributed to a very unsafe work environment and experience on set, and that there were likely to be more people coming out and more stories to come out from set. Certainly not from us, but just the chances of that happening given the history were significant. And she definitely had concerns about not wanting to appear as somebody endorsing a filmmaker that people, let alone other women, should be working with in the future. Are you aware of Miss Lively instructing any other cast member not to appear with Mr. Baldoni at the premiere? I am not. Are you aware of Miss Lively instructing any other cast member to unfollow Mr. Baldoni on social media? I am not. I mean, we know Colleen Hoover was told to unfollow Justin Baldoni, and I strongly suspect Jenny Slate was too. Are you aware of Miss Lively instructing any cast member not to do any other promotional appearances with Mr. Baldoni in relation to the film? I'm not. To your knowledge, did Miss Lively ever threaten that if Mr. Baldoni attended the premiere, she would take her sexual harassment allegations public? That was never something we were part of. And I think throughout this entire process, there were many various stages where we had asked for various things such as protections or requests or raised concerns. But I'm not aware throughout the entirety of this process any threats that were, and then it cuts off. And then we get to another page, and he's in the middle of answering. He's at the start of answering. So to paint the whole picture, we were at a time in our business where movies as a whole were not performing theatrically, and the industry was feeling a ton of anxiety and concern, and certainly romantic dramas were not working whatsoever for many, many years previously. So the movie was made for a budget of somewhere around 30 million. The opening was at 50 plus million, which is massive with a capital M and an underline. It is a monstrous opening for a film of this stature. And for it to open, for Sony at that number, to open with this budget at that number, and to open in this genre of romantic drama. Oh, I suppose so. Which had really been dormant for years, was a thunderous, thunderous signal to the entire community of what a massive, massive hit this was. If I was using a baseball reference, I think we were hoping for a home run, and this was an absolute grand slam. And based on your 18 plus years of experience as a manager in the entertainment industry, what should the success of the film have meant for Miss Lively's career? Objection. To be able to open a film at 50 million on an opening weekend on that sort of budget with, frankly, only you on the poster is a massive endorsement and a sign that you have built a huge audience, who is excited about coming to see you in films. And so what that should have represented for her is her true arrival as a top-tier movie star and an ability to command not only a significant increase in her compensation moving forward, but just as importantly, if not more, a significant rise in her opportunities to follow with great filmmakers with studio films. Because the green light ability that we were previously talking about has now only been exponentially grown. It's a huge moment. And generally in the business, when you have a movie that opens number one, even if it's 16 million on a opening weekend or 20 and it hasn't recouped its whole budget, the phones are ringing off the hook with incoming opportunities and offers and meetings, etc., so forth. And in this case, the movie almost doubled its entire budget in its opening weekend, which is just unheard of. So you can imagine our expectation was, beyond celebration. A celebration would be, to say the least. So Moses is questioning, right? So that's Lively's. And did the phones ring off the hook after the movie came out? They did not. In terms of what you reasonably would have expected Miss Lively to see for offers to come in, would you have been pushing for terms that were commensurate with what she earned on the ends with us? No. We would have been looking for and expecting quite easily a significant pay increase and also a significant increase in the amount of filmmakers who were excited and looking forward to work with her, especially at the studio level. Well, there we go. Act like Blake Lively. You don't get all that. Okay, so adjusting grey stone. So that was Lively's filing. This is now Wayfarer's filing. These are filings that supported Wayfarer. Okay. Garofalo. Okay, so you had a summary that somebody in your office may have prepared of the book and you read the script. Is that correct? Correct. And this is before Miss Lively agreed to do the movie or after? Before. And you understood from the summary and or the script that the movie would have sexual content. Is that correct? Correct. And you understood that there was violence in the movie. Is that correct? That's correct. And did you ever have any discussion in this early period of time with Miss Lively about the sexual content that she would be asked to film in connection with It Ends With Us? Objection. I can't say that I specifically had those conversations, but as a team, there was a general understanding, as it was told to me, that, and based on conversations also that were told to us either by either Wayfarer or Sony at the time when we were making a decision, generally speaking, what type of film they were looking to make. And so, yeah, there was a version of it where we knew there was a level of violence and a level of sexuality in the film, and we had an idea of what type of film they were aiming to make. Okay. What was your idea of the kind of film they were aiming to make again in this early period after discussions with either someone at Wayfarer or Sony? Objection. A version of the film that was populist and could deliver a very important message to as many people as possible. What do you mean by populist? I think, yeah, let me jump into a different page. Okay. Inappropriate conduct carrying on. I think I've read that one, the hugging circle. Yeah, I've read that one. And that page. So I read those pages. So I won't reread them because they were in the other transcript. Which I did say that there was a possibility that there would be some overlaps. There are a little bit more of Warren Zavala. Okay. So this is Garofalo. And you understood that it had sexual violence content as well, correct? Correct. And to the best of your knowledge, did Miss Lively understand that the movie had sexual content before she agreed to accept the role as Lily Bloom? Objection. You guys got to give me a little direction here. I'm sorry. Please repeat the question. My apologies. Garofalo, can you please read it back? Thank you. And he says sorry again. Same objections. Garofalo, and did you in fact discuss the subject matter of the film with Miss Lively before she accepted the role of Lily Bloom? What specifically? The sexual content? Yeah, she wasn't going to do anything that was R-rated. So there were simulated sex scenes in terms of a romance, but it wasn't. I think the question you're asking has varying degrees. Okay, tell me what, if anything, you discussed with Ange Giannetti regarding potential sex scenes in the movie before Miss Lively signed on. I don't know if we did. So is it your testimony that Miss Lively told you that there were sex scenes, but there were limits to what she would do in connection with those sex scenes? Objection. Does that mean I still answer? Yes. Okay, you've got to help me out here a little bit. Is this guy an idiot? Garofalo. I know, I should have given you that question. All right, I'm going to give it to you, and there's some inaudible crosstalk. Zavala says, give me a hand signal or something. Jump a few pages. Specifically with regard to what she would or would not do as an actress in a sex scene on the movie Enter Us, what were your conversations with Miss Lively? I didn't have, there's some objections, didn't have any. What? Why not? Okay, now prior to your visit to the set in June of 2023, did you have any conversations with Miss Lively in which she told you that she had been asked to do something on the set that she refused to do? Objection. I don't recall at that point that she had refused to do something. I didn't get a call from anybody about that. Did you provide Miss Lively with a script prior to the time she accepted the role of Lily Bloom? Yes, I did. And did you read the script? I did. At the time prior to Miss Lively's acceptance of the role of Lily Bloom, did you find, and then it stops. I want to know. I want to listen to this stuff. This is so important. Okay, so we're now on a different page. This is one where he has a look at the document and remembers what Blakehole Inc. is, so we've read that. This is the one where he's talking about the return to work list, and we have read that. So here's a different one. Okay. I feel like we're coming in halfway through him answering a question, so we'll just go with it. Sort of like her wanting to put it all to bed, sort of say her piece and move forward. There was this notion that they were going to be collaborative, and you know, I went out to the set with Lindsay Strasberg. We spent the better part of a day in New Jersey at her house, and it seemed to be the case. It was working well, and Todd Black and Angie Giannetti both pulled me aside to say how them collaborating together was making for better scenes, and they were feeling great about everything. Jamie was cordial, Alex was in good spirits, I saw her as well. It seemed like we were in a much better place, and I think Blake was feeling very positive about the final phase of the movie. Okay, and another thing that she was requesting was that she was given a producer credit. I think that was much later chronologically. Okay, at some point, did she make that request? Objection. Is that correct? I had heard that she made that request, yes. Okay. We go into a different page. Partway through a question ended on a positive note. He answers, it was I actually don't know. I think it was ended on a positive enough note for her to return to work. I don't know. Okay, now after the January 4th meeting, did shooting for the film resume? Yeah, shortly thereafter. Okay. I feel like the meeting was like a handful of days before they started photography. Okay, now when the strike occurred, how much of the film had been completed? Objection. I'm unclear on that. Okay. I think so this is Wayfarer now, because this is Lively's asking, because it's Bruno. I think we talked about this earlier, so this is Zavala. I think we talked about this earlier, and I feel like somewhere around half, I don't recall. Okay, now, when shooting for the film resumed, you testified that you were there physically for some of the shooting, is that right? Objection. I did say I come out to a set, yes, and spent the breadth of the day there. Okay, and how would you describe the environment when you were there? Positive. I think that Jamie seemed like he was in good spirits. Lindsay Strasberg and I spoke to Justin briefly. Everybody seemed to be happy that they were back at work. Todd and Ange, during a setup, pulled me aside and said that she was really collaborating with Justin and they were getting much better work, and she had great ideas and it felt really positive. In terms of Miss Lively on set, did you observe, strike that? What did you witness with respect to Miss Lively on set? Was she collaborating with Mr. Baldoni? Yeah, I watched a scene where Justin was sort of directing, and she gave him some ideas from across the living room of like this or that, and Todd and Ange were sitting there in Video Village, and they seemed like it was all. She seemed happy. I think she was relieved that she was going to be finishing the film, and it felt good. And besides acting, did you observe Miss Lively do anything else on the production set? No, we spent some time together. Okay. I'm going to end it there. That's another portion of Warren Zavala's transcript. I have the bigger one I'm going to do. How are we for time? Yeah, I'll do the bigger one, and then I might do Stephanie Jones's as well with that bigger one. Okay. Do you know what? I think I will. I'll do it now. Fuck it. Let's do it now. There we go. And I'll do Warren Zavala as a standalone. Okay. What page are we? Page 50. No idea who's questioning at this point. But she's been asked. And what happened? What happened in 2023? That was the reason that you halted referring the business to her. So that's got to be regarding Melissa Nathan. An associate of one of my clients had a hotel room at the Setai, and a very young, aspiring singer was found dead in the bathtub. And it was my understanding she was handling crisis for that associate of my clients, and that's when I stopped recommending her. Do you recall when in 2023 that you stopped recommending her? I don't recall exactly what happened when that happened in 2023. I also know that the incident happened well before it was in the press. You know that the incident happened before it was in the press, is that correct? The press, it's my understanding based on conversations and also the press that I had happened at a prior date but somehow hadn't gotten out in the press. Yes. And what about that situation bothered you so much that you stopped referring business to her? She made a phone call to someone but we jump a couple of pages. So this is now a new question. What did you tell your client? This is unethical. This isn't the way we operate. And as I had read, about it, and it was awful, and the girl was really young, so I was upset that she was trying to change her name. And I said, as a mum, also, it was just like, what are we doing? And it just, yeah. What about the services that she was providing? What about those bothered you? I'm sorry, I'm not following. What do you mean? Maybe I'm mischaracterizing it. So let me step back and ask it a different way. Is it fair to say that you were upset that Melissa Nathan took on that person as a client in that situation? Objection. Kristen Thaler, who is Stephanie Jones's attorney, is objecting. So that means I think this is going to be way fairer. Is it attorney? I will figure out which the attorney one is. No, I was upset that she was trying to do something unethical. And what was unethical? I guess the girl's name was different on her birth certificate, but she was known by her artist name, if you will, I guess. I don't really know, but I know that she was trying to. It bothered me that she was trying to misrepresent who the girl was to create confusion. And in terms of misrepresenting who the girl was, you're referring to the girl's name, is that correct? Objection. I don't remember the exact details of all the things that she wanted us to serve as a source for, meaning Jones works, but I do remember telling my client that we should not be a second source at all. And this is because we're not privy to any of this. And I knew Melissa hadn't called me to ask me because she knew I wouldn't have done that. And there were several things that she was asking the team to serve as a source on, and we would not have been the sources. But she was doing it under the guise of like protecting our client because of his association with him, the client she was representing. And your client did not want that. Objection. If I recall, he was very upset. I was upset. I was emotional on the call with him, and he was very upset that she had called someone on my team as well and told me he was going to handle it. Is that why you were upset? Because your client was upset? Objection. No, I've already answered earlier that I was upset because she was asking us to do because it was unethical. Right, and when you say that she was asking you to do that, what she was asking you to do was to serve as a source of some kind, correct? Objection. Correct. And what did she want your company to serve as a source about? I know you testified to the name, but was there something else that she wanted you to act as a source on? Yeah, I had said earlier that I didn't remember exactly what all those details were, but that there were several things in addition to saying her name wasn't this. It was that was one that sticks out to me that I recall. Did you ever do any research on what this young woman's real name was? Yes. Okay, so we're now going to a different page. She's answering. I met her when she was working at CAA, and then when she went to work at Westbrook, Will Smith's company. And what was her role at Westbrook, if you know? I believe that I think she might have been president there also. Do you know whether or not Tara Hanks was involved in making the decision to bring on Melissa Nathan as a crisis person? I can't remember the exact verbatim of her text to me, but it was just to me. And I believe that she said we, so I assume that she was. Did you ever tell her, whether in writing or orally, that she was making a mistake by bringing in Melissa Nathan? I believe that I texted her and put it in writing, and then I believe we had a call as well, where I shared, knowing that she was a mum of 5 girls, I shared with her that what I had witnessed Melissa doing that I felt was really unethical with a friend, an associate of my clients. And I said, this is someone who's trying to, said something to the effect of, this is someone who's trying to, like, I said, this is something to the effect of, you're a mum of 5 girls. This is a woman who is literally trying to pretend like this young dead artist in a hotel room didn't exist. And it's not someone we want to work with. It's really bad. And I hope that appealing to her being a mum of 5 girls, which we talked a lot about in the time I knew her, that she would understand how deeply unethical Melissa was, and that surely that would make her realize this isn't someone we want to align Justin with. And I also texted Justin, I'm someone who speaks up. I don't care if my client is rich. I don't care if they're famous. They're often surrounded by yes people. And I texted Justin. I think that I tried to call him as well, and he didn't answer. And he texted me back that he was letting Jamie make the decision because it was too heavy for him to hold. Other than the situation with your client's associate, do you mind if I refer you to that situation as the Miami situation? The dead girl in a jacuzzi face down who was in her 20s? Sure. What the fuck? You could have just said yeah. Okay, we're going to go to a different page. She's being shown an exhibit, so Stephanie Jones 5. Friedman. Friedman is the Wayfarer attorney questioning. Is some text message between yourself and Scooter Braun? A text message string between yourself and Scooter Braun dated August 15th. Do you need a minute to look at it? Yeah, let me just refresh my memory on this. I'm just reading it out loud, sorry. Okay. On August 15th, 2024, did you communicate to Scooter Braun that Melissa Nathan was planting stories so that she could kill them? I believe this was after, yes, it was after I returned from my trip, and yes, I do remember, I believe that. What stories were you referring to? On, I believe it was August 9th, Jen, on a text with my client, Wayfarer, said that Leslie Sloan, or Blake's publicist, I can't recall the exact message, but that Sony, as well as Leslie Sloan, Blake Lively's publicist, had heard that I had leaked something to the Daily Mail and it had broken up the truce, or something to that effect. And then I don't know if Jamie's text come before that or after that, but Jamie Heath texted me something of like my name in quotes. Stephanie Jones, we just heard that Stephanie Jones, again, something similar to that, something similar to leaking something to the Daily Mail. Oh my god, this is just word salady. Were you trying to get Scooter Braun to fire Melissa Nathan? Objection. Are we still on the same? Oh, by sending that text? Telling Scooter that Melissa Nathan was planting stories so that she could kill them was the purpose of sending that to Scooter Braun to try and get him to fire her. I was telling Scooter what I believe to be true because it is something that I speculated in the past as well. And I believed that given she is constantly talking to Daily Mail, and I don't know if she used to work there, if her sister used to work there, but she had a deep connection with Daily Mail, and that would be one of her go-to places she would always go to. And the fact that they were blaming me for it, because when I knew I hadn't, and I was on a family vacation, I thought she was behind my Business Insider piece. I felt strongly she was, which we've since found out was right. And I knew she was the one who had gone to the Daily Mail, or Jen, but I felt firmly that it was Melissa because the inquiry we got was about 3 influencers, or a number of influencers who were on the red carpet, or who noticed that Blake and Justin didn't pose together on the carpet. And this is still her, by the way. And it just so happened to be, which I think I noted, that Harry on our social team had sent those. Out of all of the ones that were out there, he had curated a few, and those were the ones that were in the story. And it was my belief that Henry had forwarded them to Jen, and Jen had shared them. And in order to get a big retainer from Justin and justify that she needed to come on board, my assumption was that she took these social media posts to the Daily Mail and had them do a story. So she could say, look, you urgently need to hire me now. It's, there is this Daily Mail. And I think she's still going. And I think they also knew that Justin wasn't following closely, nor was Jamie, nor was Tara, which articles were saying that, and that they tried to portray that this article was negative about Blake and broken the truths, and I had done it, and it wasn't true, it was false, that was a lie. And I couldn't think of any other explanation as to why they would want to lie and blame me for something like that, unless they were behind it. And I also knew that she wanted to get hired by Justin, and there were, lots of chats about this that we later discovered. Oh my God. Oh, I'm going to need aspirin after this. Now, I feel like either Ryan Reynolds prepared her to say that, or her psychic did. Wow, that was a lot. Okay. In this text string, you are commenting on the Business Insider piece, and you say 53. You had 53 people text you how badass you are. Do you see that? Yes. Is that true? I don't recall. Translate. I'm a liar. I had gotten a lot of incoming texts, and people were trying to, and then it cuts off. Thank the Lord. Wow, that was a lot. Okay, I'm calling it a day with this video. I will probably come back next with the Ryan Reynolds news article.